Welcome back to the channel. We are going to keep the playing lessons rolling here. So we are going to run through a few holes that have a little bit of risk versus reward to them. So we have a couple reachable par 5s, gettable par 4 that is potentially drivable based on the wind and tees. So we are going to go over some strategy to kind of manage risk or kind of know when should we take advantage of certain spots. So first hole we have here is a longer par 5. It is around 580 yards. Big dogleg left, very undulated green. So not a whole lot to this tee shot. We've got trees on the right side, and it does start to open up into some trees and hazard as you get further left. So this stuff on the left here right in front of me isn't really in play. Once you clear that, it does open up quite a bit on the left side. So really with this, I'm going to pretty much aim right down the center, hit my go-to tee shot, which I try to hit a little bleeder cut, and that will give me a little bit of room both ways, but don't need to get too creative with this one. Rip the driver all day long. If you know that your miss is usually a little bit more right, you can favor left center. If you know that your miss is usually a little bit more left, you can favor right center of the fairway just to give yourself more room, but really not a whole lot to this one. So to me, just teeing up on this left side is a little bit more comfortable. My miss tends to be left if I get a little quick with one, so I do want to avoid that left side. So going to tee up on the left side here, aim right down the center and try to hit the cut out there. So a little heel thin, but that is going to be just fine. Not sure if I will be able to get there in 2 or not, but we will find out. Now there's some more decision making here. I have about 270 into this flag or into this green here. So you can kind of cut this corner and take a direct route over to this green or lay it up out to this right side. So 270 yards, first thing is, what is the wind doing? The wind is back into me. No matter how good I hit 3-wood, it is not getting there. So if I hit the 3-wood still and I just try to get it up there as far as I can, I would say I'm probably less accurate with the 3-wood than I am a 4-iron. And with this 3-wood, I have a bunker short of the green by about 70 yards. That is not an ideal shot. Having a 70-yard bunker shot is the last thing that I would like here. Then we have trees that start to come into play closer to 260 yards. So those are a little bit more in play. So if I can't get there, why would I bring the trees into play hitting the same club? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So if I'm going to lay up, take all the trouble out of play. I don't want those trees in play. I don't want that bunker in play. I'll take my chances with a wedge in my hand. So this is why I have the 4-iron. Not going to get too greedy down this left side where there's hazard. There's these 2 trees out there that I'm basically just going to try to split the uprights on and try to get something to land right in between those, leave me a wedge in, and I will take my medicine. But 273 wood into the wind, unfortunately, that is not in the game. So completely soaked out here, going to play a little bit of lift clean in place. With mud balls though, just to kind of touch on this is a good chance to mention this. If you ever are playing the ball down and it's not super wet, but it's just a little bit muddy and you do get a clump of mud on the ball, a good learning lesson is going to be, if the clump of mud is over on the right side of the ball is usually going to curve left. If the clump of mud is over on the left side of the golf ball, it is usually going to curve a little bit more to the right. So not super muddy, just kind of soggy out here. So going to roll it a little bit. But again, have 4-iron, going to try to split the uprights of those trees and leave myself a wedge in and not get this thing in too much trouble. They're just a tad thin, drew just left of that left tree. That's going to be just fine. Should have a good look straight up into this green. 97 yards left, really good look into this green here. And this green has a huge ridge in the middle of it. So anything that's on the left going to slope very hard left. Anything that gets over it to the right is going to run away right. Pin is in the middle back of the green. So here I have to look at how soft are the greens and what is the wind doing. So this wind, a little bit into from this direction. So I don't want to hit anything too hard. So if I have 97 yards and it's kind of normal conditions, it's a 54 degree for me all day long. Not a full one, just a good 3/4, goes about 100 yards. But if I know that I'm a little bit more back into the wind and I try to give a little bit extra into this wedge, it's going to add more spin, which is it's going to go a little bit higher. If it goes a little bit higher with more spin into the wind, it's honestly going to go even shorter than if I would just kind of hit the lower knockdown. So I don't want to hit something full for that reason. So this is where, rather than messing with kind of getting this thing up into the wind, letting the wind control it more, especially with the greens being a little softer and the amount of slope in this green, I don't want to leave it up to chance on what kind of hop this is going to get. So I'm going to go down to a 50 degree. So I've got a 50 degree from 97 yards. Again, everything is sloping left, kind of feeding into this pin. So I'm going to aim about 10 feet right of it. I'm going to hit just a nice little just past half swing 50, try to bring one in a little bit lower, landing it just right of the pin, and it should take a hop and kind of spin back over to this left side. But when it comes to your aim points here, you cannot miss right. That is going to leave you in almost guaranteed 3-putt territory with how much slope there is. So favor the left side of this green, but I'm gonna aim just right of the pin. See what kind of hop that gets. It's going to be a little short, did not fly it too far. So going to have a little bit of a lengthier putt back up the hill, but not going to kill me. It's on the right side of the slope, shouldn't be too bad of a putt back up towards that hill, back towards that hole. So overall, not a very good shot there. It wasn't a bad shot, wasn't bad contact, just did not hit it hard enough. Realistically, was trying to get something to land a little bit more over in this vicinity to kind of take one hop and spin back, trying to get it a little bit more under the hole, somewhere down in here. Just, again, not hit it quite hard enough. But not a bad spot to be putting back up the hill. I'd rather be here than long putting back down it. So I'm going to have a pretty decent look here back up the hill, breaking a little bit to the left. So greens are a little bit slower after some rain, so definitely have to hit this one with a little pace. And when I get these breaking putts, I'm really just trying to find where I think the point of max break is going to be. This one is going to be coming in very hard from that right side. So realistically, that line is probably going to have to be kind of somewhere up in through here, trying to get that ball to come into the front of the hole, which is going to be somewhere in that vicinity from this angle. So not a whole lot to it. Uphill, slow, throw it out to that right side and try to get this one to drip in there. Maybe not quite enough pace, but I will take it. That is a stress-free par. So again, not the best wedge shot, but overall pretty stress-free hole, which I will take. Very quickly, while waiting for the green to clear, if you are looking for golf bags, travel bags, apparel, head covers, Stitch Golf is going to have you covered. They have their brand new Gen 2 SL2 golf bag with extra storage space compared to their other models. Fantastic stuff. I've been working with them for a while. They're the official partner and are covering all the apparel for the Crushers on the Live Tour and covering Bryson DeChambeau's merch and the rest of the team. So if you are looking for any apparel or bags or anything the rest of the year, use code BryceCope24 to take 20% off site-wide. This is a good hole. This is going to be a fun one here. So we have a potentially drivable par 4, a little bit of a dog leg around the corner. We have trees down the left, we have trees through the fairway, we have trees in bunker right, and then that green obviously shapes over to that right side there. So this is where it comes down to go for it or lay up. So if I'm going for this green, I have to make sure I have enough club to get there. So wind is going to be something that we'll talk about. If you are laying up, this is where you cannot get stuck in no man's land, meaning to these trees through the fairway, it's going to be a little bit closer to 250 yards, basically dead straight. Left doesn't really matter if you hit it 20 yards or 250 yards, they're in play the whole time. But you don't want to hit something that puts you in that 230, 240, 250 range because you start bringing all of these trees long into play. So if you're going to lay up, make sure you're laying up short of the trouble. That is where it would be a 4-iron pretty much every single time for me. Now it comes down to, do I want to hit driver? Do I want to try to go for this thing? And I have to pay attention to what this wind is doing. So fortunately, this wind is helping and it's pushing this golf ball a little bit more downwind towards that hole. But this is where you really have to pay attention to what the wind has been doing throughout the round. And it's not a guarantee that it's going to be doing the same thing. Of course, it can change. But when I get into a hole like this that's basically surrounded by woods, you may not really feel the wind, but when you're out in the open on other parts of the course, the wind may have been pretty strong. So here I can feel it a little bit, but say I couldn't. Say this was in a spot where there were a few more trees behind me blocking it. I needed to be paying attention to what was going on the past few holes. So when I get to a hole when there's no wind, I know what it's doing up there to help me with this decision. Because the last thing you want to do is forget it's downwind, take a club that you hit 220 and nuke it, and then it gets up into the wind and it goes long into the trees because you forgot the wind was helping. So here, I know the wind is helping me. I'm going to hit driver, basically trying to just shape a little cut right around this corner. I have a little more room right, so I need to make sure that this thing cuts and then just try to get it up into the wind and let it fall over to that right side there. Oh, towed that about as hard as possible, but it's going to be fine. Maybe catch a little bit of bunker there. But not going to hurt me too bad. So probably just short of the green, if anything. So definitely got away with one there. Walking up, I genuinely have no idea how this ball got there. Getting up here, I can again really feel that wind is very strong into, but not too bad of a miss there. So overall, really happy with that. Thought it was going to be short of the green, but that is why gauging that wind is so important, because if I hit that well, honestly, probably too much club, but definitely if I try to lay it up back in through here and hit what I thought would have been fine, I definitely bring running long onto that cart path and into these trees in play. So not a bad miss at all. Again, I will take that all day long. Had to have landed just left of that bunker and rolled up here. So looking at this putt, it's going to be very slow, working through a little bit of fringe, back up the hill, back into the wind, which is going to slow it down a little bit. And this putt is definitely going to dive pretty hard to this right side, and it's going to be working down the hill. So even though the greens are slower, need to be a little cautious as it approaches the hole. But when I get these longer breaking putts, I'm not, of course, you don't want to plan to miss them, but you're not going to make very many from this range. So I need to think, where do I want to leave it? Do I want to be cautious and leave myself short where I now have a downhill breaking left to righter? That's probably the last putt I would want. I'd rather hit this thing a little bit longer, and even if it's further away, I'd rather have 5 feet back up the hill, just kind of right edge, than a 3.5, 4 foot slider that's breaking left to right and down the hill. Maybe not everyone agrees with that, but personally, that is what I prefer. So my last thought here is I have to give this enough speed. I want to make sure this thing gets up past that hole so I have an easier putt coming back if I have one. It would be great if it goes in, but again, we're going to make very few from this range. So got to throw this one out to the left pretty hard. Usually when I get these longer putts, like you saw on the first hole, I'll take a few of these practice strokes, looking at the hole, just trying to help my mind and kind of dial in this speed here. Last thought is going to be to make sure this thing has enough pace to get there. So definitely has enough pace. So that was pretty lucky there. Excuse the jet noise, it is pretty non-stop. But again, I have a good look here. It was lucky that it caught so much of the hole, but have a pretty straight look up the hill. So definitely can be aggressive with this one, not a bad leave. Broke just a little right on me. Played it straight, so frustrating par, but got lucky on the tee shot, I would say, but did not take advantage there. Third hole is another par 5, a lot of risk reward on this hole as well, just like the last two. Have trees all down the left side, and then we have water coming into play over on that right side. So this is where it comes down to, what do you want to hit off the tee? Par 5, most of you are going to want to choose to hit driver. But say you're not feeling it with driver. The thing you need to check is, when does that water start to come into play? Probably right around 230 yards. If you don't hit your driver that far, no brainer, hit the driver. But again, if you have the rights with the driver, you're just not feeling it, want to widen that fairway a little bit, you can take something that you hit around 220, and you are going to open your fairway up, or your landing area up, I should say, not necessarily a fairway. You're going to open that landing area up probably by 50, 60 yards, and that is where you can just accept it's going to be a 3-shot hole, lay it up, hit it onto the green, try to make a routine par, or give yourself a chance at birdie. So this is where I'm feeling all right with the driver, going to pull this. So I need to look at, where's my aim point. So when I have scattered trees versus water, I'm going to tee up on the side of the water, because the water is the worst penalty there in theory. Of course, you can hit it into the trees and get boned, but I would rather have a chance of finding it in the trees than hitting it right and it's an obvious drop. So this wind is pushing this ball away from the water as well, which is nice, but I am going to favor this right side of the tee box just to get it on the same side as the water, and there's a big tree out in the distance there. With this wind, I'm kind of pushing it to the right. I'm going to aim just right of that, so pretty much teeing up on the right side of the tee box to aim away from the water, but favoring that left center of the fairway there, just to open things up a little bit more for me. Oh, it's turning over a little bit. Wind's got it. That's going to be close to that tree line. So this is not exactly ideal. So can find it, have a okay shot at it where I can try to carve it around this tree here, but again, not quite in an ideal spot. So when I'm looking at this, I have a few things working in my favor. I have a pin that's in the back left, so if I really try to hook this around, I can land this short and kind of run it up to that pin with the hook spin that it's going to have. But I also have the wind pushing it this direction. So say I had the wind pushing extremely hard out this way, and it was going to be hard for me to really shape this shot. Probably couldn't go for it, would probably have to just chip out, get something up here to like 120, 130 yards and take my medicine. But I have about 203 yards of this pin. Wind is working this over to the left, so I'm going to take a 7-iron. It's about a 185 club, but with the wind helping, and I'm going to hood the face down a little bit. That should go a little bit further. Big lesson here is if you are playing for a ball to hook or a ball to fade with when you're starting it over hazard like this, you better hook it or you better fade it. You would rather overcook it than underdo it. They're going to try to aim well right, close that face down, and try to hit a big slinging draw in there. Got all of it. Don't know if it's going to draw quite enough to get close. I'm just kind of back right of the green or fringe, so not a bad spot. So did not shape it quite enough, but not a bad leave. And that is kind of what these videos are all about, is first hole, didn't hit the best wedge shot in the world, had an okay look at birdie. Got away with a decent shot off of the tee on the last hole, and great putt, still left myself with a decent look for birdie. Didn't hit a great tee ball, but kind of managed my way into leaving myself a decent chip for eagle here. So this is where, when I'm looking at this, definitely braking very hard from right to left, going to be up the hill and slower. So I have a ton of fringe to work through. So the fringes here are pretty wide. Fringe fairway starts to bleed together. Probably have about 12 feet here. So I don't want to putt this. With this being straight up the hill, it's going to be a little bit on the slower side. And then with having so much fringe and fairway to cover, it can hop a little bit. So I'm going to take a 50-degree wedge. So if the fringe, say, kind of ended here and it was a lot more green, that's where I'd be more likely to putt it, or take a club with a little bit less loft, like a 9-iron. But because I have so much to carry, I need to make sure this ball has enough lift to get over and then runs up the hill. So just going to kind of find a landing spot a couple feet over that fringe there, aim this thing out to the right, and try to drive a low 50-degree up there. Miss-wise, I'm looking to err on the side of short, would rather putt back up this hill and hit something past and leave myself a little slider. So good line, we'll see if it's enough to get there. So not quite breaking enough, but good pace. So that is going to be a pretty stress-free birdie. So somewhat, second ball was a little stressful in the air, but I hope you guys continue to enjoy these videos. Going to keep trying to make these. Again, I apologize for the jet noise, but finished at 1 under. I will take it. Wasn't the prettiest golf in the world, but kind of managed my way around. So if you guys have any questions, comments, or anything, as always, please leave them in the comments below.